Good afternoon. Welcome to Speaking in Your Basement. I want to talk about a couple of things today. The first is just a simple idea. If you're looking for something to speak about, of course, you can do your own writing. You can speak extemporaneously. You can just pick a topic and speak off the top of your head, whatever comes to your mind. One of the best methods I've found. Take an author, somebody that you like, and if it's an article, you can print it out. If it's from a book, you can just have a copy of the book with you and just read out loud a section of that. A paragraph, a page, a chapter if you want to get crazy. There's a Napoleon Hill suggestion. I've done this with Napoleon Hill and Stephen Covey and many other authors. But there's a Napoleon Hill suggestion to read, I believe it's the third or fourth chapter, the chapter on autosuggestion in the book Think and Grow Rich, every night until you essentially internalize the ideas in the chapter. That's not a bad way to go. And you can ultimately do this with any ideas. Now, it's not that it's ever going to force you into physically acting out the ideas all the time, but to where the ideas are automatically a part of your thinking, that's there. That's legitimate. You can do that with just repetition. It has to be sincere. You have to be interested. You can't just rote do it. You have to try to go a little deeper into it every time. Now, there's an interesting thing when you're speaking this out loud. No longer is it such an issue of, oh, let me just get through the mindless repetition of it. It's, how can I put a little more impact into this? How can I put more emphasis in this? How can I emphasize this in just the right way? You see, you're more saying it to yourself while you're practicing on your own than you are to anybody else, but you're still speaking out loud. And it puts the ideas in a different context. It's one to just read it to yourself, not actually say it out loud, not actually mull it over or anything. It's kind of going on inside your mind, and that has an effect. But it's a different effect when you speak it out, when you put it out there. You receive it differently, both in terms of when you try to express it out loud, as well as when you're actually hearing it with your physical ears, as opposed to just hearing it inside your mind. It's a very powerful method. I suggest playing with it. Give it a week or two and see what you think. And you can just read about if you want to, but I'd read the same thing a few times. Read it a few days in a row. If you want to do like Napoleon Hill suggested and go a month or longer on one page or paragraph or whatever else it is you might be working on, then do that. But at least give something a couple of reads, because after you read it a couple of times, you sort of get a feel for it, like practicing your part or reading through a script or something like that. It allows you to see it in a different way and to potentially emphasize it in a more powerful way than you have before. The other idea I was going to bring up is this part of what I was just telling you now is just a way to get started. Ultimately, you might want to be, just practicing your own ideas or further clarifying your own ideas. But to get started with, just start with something. Just get moving. Down the line, if you do this for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, maybe even years, then you might find that you really need to add something into it. But you'll be surprised at how far you can go with just a very simple practice. And I offer the podcast I'm doing right now as an example of this. There's a lot that this podcast needs. It probably needs a camera stand, if anything. I'll hold my phone up with my hand as I film on it. And that's working for right now. This isn't perfect. It's not like an impressive studio around me. But it's working. It's giving me an opportunity to speak off the top of my head live and to do it consistently. Once every day since I started last week, and we'll see how far we can go with this. I'm planning on doing this for a couple of years, at least. And long term, I probably need something like a studio, maybe better audio equipment, certainly either better editing skills or someone who can help with editing, who can, get this out in some interesting formats. But for right now, it needs a consistency. And I've watched all kinds of content that wasn't particularly sophisticated, but I was interested in what the person had to say. And whether there's someone interested in hearing what I have to say or there's not, I feel I need to say it. And so I'm going to keep saying it. And I think the consistency of that, even if this goes nowhere else other than me just showing up for a few minutes every day to say what I need to say, there's a power in that. If this podcast is just for me and that's the only person that's ever for, so be it. Hopefully some other people will find it useful as well. You can go a long way with just simple consistency. I remember losing a lot of weight in my 20s with just walking. I cut down on sugar a little bit, didn't even cut it out, just cut down on it a little bit, and walked every day for 45 minutes or more. And on multiple occasions, I lost a significant amount of weight, 30 or more pounds, with just a simple exercise done over time. There's a lot of power. There's a lot of power in consistency if you will just show up. So keep showing up to your practice. You get a lot when you read an author out loud. You get more out of that author. You not only make their ideas more a part of your ideas, you get to see where there may be limitations in their thinking or limitations in the way they expressed it. You might think of a more better or more complete way of expressing the same idea. Or you might think, wow, that conflicts with some of my other ideas. And you might start the process of sorting out some conflicting ideas, which most people never actually do because it's challenging. But if you're up for that challenge, if you're up for showing up consistently, there's no telling how far you're going to go with this. So let's find out how far you can go with this. I'm Ben Langley. Thanks for spending some time with me today. We'll talk again soon.